Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. We had a lady psychiatrist here years ago, and she fell over and hit her head, passed out. And her twin sister was sitting at this side of the room, and everybody wants to come, right? All the gentlemen want to come and do, no! Stay right where the fuck you are. In the cosmos of time, her falling over is not a fart in the wind. We're just going to keep marching on to the normal break. So when the break came, everybody's real angry. They all run over and they're helping her. That's why you're all fucked up, because when you fell off the bicycle, your mother, oh, poor Billy, poor Johnny, poor Sally. Oh, fuck. Anyway, tonight is another special evening. Sally was starting to tell me about it, and I said, I don't need to know all the details. So when did he go? Last night or this morning? When?
This morning. He just
happened
left.
like 3 a.m. He started feeling sick. It looked like he was robbing a bank last night with that leather jacket.
Yeah. I mean, that's smart casual in Australia. Is that what smart casual is in Australia? Huh?
Oh my gosh.
Fuck. Now he looks like he's from the bush. They dress better than that in the bush. Fuck. Okay. Any questions about anything before we get started? Although I just scanned the YouTube comments a little, they think that I'm cutting off the YouTubes, what we put on, just at the point where the secrets come out. Yeah. That's what they think. Yeah, and you're not fair, and you say everything's on line, and yet the secret, the tips and the bullshit, you turn it off. Somebody asked me, this is a while ago, sometimes you run 18 minutes, sometimes you run 28 minutes. And what's the differentiation? And Kat knows, it's just, if I'm on a roll about something, I keep talking, and when she goes like this, I say, just keep filming. But not because I skip from page 26 to, that's not it. Last night you saw
Part 2, The Men That Built America.
Okay.
Went through a lot of stuff.
Carnegie.
Yeah.
The little shit. Well, in a word, savage, ruthless. It was at the part where he kicked his mentor in the teeth and left him for dead. And is that you didn't see that part? Okay, that's coming up. The guy that had mentored him since he's 17 years old, and he got him started. And then when he got in trouble 12 years or 15 years later, and he came back to Carnegie to ask him for help, Carnegie just turned his back and walked away. Which is very much how it is. Occasionally, it's not that way. But I'm on board. Pull up the gangplank. We're going to talk to Marcus today, right? At 10. And he asked some questions about your backgrounds, etc. And so he can prepare. Although, he can do it off the top of his head. He's been doing it a long time, since the summer of 2010. And but he's only seen interest rates and property prices, etc. go interest rates one way down, and property prices one way up. And so when you look at somebody's career, have they been through at least one cycle? Better that they've been through 2 cycles. And for a few of us that have been through 3, arguably 4 cycles, then you're pretty sure they know what they're doing. If they're still making money, they haven't been wiped out. But a lot of the big guys have been wiped out at least once, if not completely wiped out, almost completely wiped out. And even a retarded chimpanzee learns from mistakes that they made in their previous career, or in the early part of their career. But some guys and gals don't learn anything. And as Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is insanity. But the old adage, God only made so much property, real estate, and it's always going to go up, is bullshit. And if you've been around long enough, you've seen downturns in property prices. And when we lived in Mayfair, 99.9% of all of the property is on long-term lease, between 100 and 250-year lease. And the guy that lived across the street from Sally and myself was so proud because he bought from the Duke of Westminster his big 5-story house. He bought. So he owned, the title for 12 million pounds. Now this is 20 plus years ago, 12 million pounds. He sold it for 4 million pounds when the market in the early 90s crashed Mayfair property prices. And he wouldn't have sold it, but all his other assets were going to shit and he needed to raise cash. And owning a house of fee simple in Mayfair is a pretty special thing because, 99.9% of it is all on long-term lease. And the Duke of Westminster in 17 something or other, when he married into that Mayfair family, he married a 12-year-old girl. He was a 26-year-old lawyer, a crook lawyer. Even in the 1700s, they were crooks. And they went to Scotland to get married because there's a border town right not too far from here where 12 years old was in Scotland where you were considered a majority. So it was like in a movie, her father and brothers were chasing him in stagecoaches and just like in the movies, and they got here, they didn't get here, they got to Scotland and he got married, and by the time the family got there, it was an hour and a half later. But he was a shrewd guy, he figured it out, and so when it all came down and she inherited everything, she inherited central London when she was about 14. And he thought then, I'm never going to sell this property, I'm just going to put it on a long-term lease. And in the beginning, he had too many 200-year leases because he knew he wasn't going to be around. But then he shrunk them down to 99-year leases, and now I think they've even got 49-year leases. But if you put something on 200 or 300-year lease, you essentially everybody forgets that it's on lease, and then it caught on in other cities where they now, or not now, but then. Back in the 1700s and the early 1800s, they leased all the prime property. I've often wondered, I haven't checked, if the Buckingham Palace is owned by the royal family or is it on a long-term lease from, the Duke of Westminster. I don't know that. Yeah.
Well, Manhattan is very similar.
Yeah.
A lot of Manhattans.
Yeah. And in this, Roberto would be the guy marrying the 12-year-old. With the family. With the families behind you, shooting at you in the stage, going bam, chasing you down. Man, that was only a made-up story by Dan Peña, who likes to exaggerate. We'll just call it a Trumpism. Because the president and I have that in common. I like to exaggerate. I do, and I've never gotten in trouble doing it. Every once in a while, when I'm in court, they say, Mr. Peña, in 1987, did you say such and such? And I'll look at my lawyers and they'll say, and I'll go, I have a vague recollection. I might have said that. And then they ask it a different way. Is it something that you normally do? And I said, normally do what? And he says, go over the top, exaggerate. And I said, well, I've been accused of that. Mostly wrongfully, but I've been accused of that. But part of my selling, when I was selling at Lake Havasu with no water, just sand, as far as the eye could see. And I'm telling these, Arby and Margaret, when we get out of my car and it's 140 degrees, literally, out there in the Mojave Desert. And then they walk out of the car and it's sand. And, wait, Margaret, this is the boat dock, the boat slip. You could fall into the water right there. And then so Arby says, oh yeah, we got to stand back. And then I said, you see those little dots on the horizon? Those are sails of sailboats. And Arby says, by God, I do see them. The lake finally got water. and they moved London Bridge, I guess it was, to there. And but back in those days, you needed a long-range bomber with refueling capability to get out there. I mean, God Almighty, I love those. But that's when I had a 94.6% closing ratio when I sold. 94.6% of everybody that came into my office sold or bought or died. Bought or died, you know. And it was all about setting expectations. When we're talking about, you know, again, going back to what Roberto says, this is goals are bigger, et cetera, et cetera. My old sales manager, a guy named Kelly Norwood, a disbarred lawyer, as he was, said, Peña, a young man like you ought to sell every son of a bitch and walk through the door. And so my expectation was everybody that walked through the door, which is 100%. I felt bad when somebody wiggled off the hook, which not too many wiggled off the hook. Okay, we are going to have one more presentation before we break. Oh, no. We're going to have as many presentations as it takes us up to 10. I forgot because Marcus is online. So who's next? Who's volunteering? Don't everybody jump up at once. Who hasn't given? Everybody's hand raises. Okay, you're next. I always like a volunteer, you know. One of the things that you learn in the military when you first go in as a private, don't volunteer for shit. Okay, don't stand in the front line and don't volunteer. And when they say everybody's take a step forward, make sure, wait till everybody takes a step forward and then you take a step forward because you don't know what you're volunteering for. I got my fucking smart casual on and he's not here. God damn.
He'll be back.
Well, good. I'm sure, you know.
And we'll take pictures just in case.
Yeah.
You can watch it on YouTube.
Some of these, the older guys, the Duke and the Earls and my neighbors, they prance around looking like this. And, you know, and they're sitting there in Downton Abbey. That program was on TV and it used to be upstairs, downstairs from the 70s and 80s. And they wonder why they're not current on what's happening in the world. Okay. Go.
Okay. So maybe for the ones that don't know me, working for last 10 years, oil and gas experience, various roles, also in drilling. But that my one-on-one with Ms. Peña said, have a look at home care, which I thought was a great idea because currently in the Netherlands it's not being built up. So home care in the Netherlands. I think this slide will give you the entire context of what the Netherlands is about in home care. Most importantly, you indeed see that there's a strong predictable growth going in the coming next years, so 200%, so doubling in 80-year plus in 2040. That's only the 80-year plus. If you're looking at the 65, we see there around 30% increase in the next 3 to 4 years. Interesting thing about home care also is that digitalization as such is not really taking place currently, because the people that are now getting home care, they are literate, or at least they cannot use digital. In the coming 5 years, everybody, of course, will be able to use that. If you're looking at whether it's a good QLA industry, 3,000 companies are foundations, meaning that you cannot make a profit. Well, you can, of course, generate revenues, but you cannot put it as a dividend into your pocket, which makes it quite difficult. And also, disassembling a foundation is complex because you have, if you made a profit, you cannot put it into a different entity or a legal entity. However, if you change the foundational architecture, you are able then to put that money into, for example, innovation or digital or creating different revenues. So there are smart ways around it. However, there is currently 180 companies that are privately owned and where making profit is more or less possible. However, the margins are relatively low. It's 5 to 10% in that order of magnitude. Then also the CAO, labor unions, at least the wages are quite controlled, meaning that I think it was a couple of months ago, they said they want to raise the costs for labor the coming year. And it also means that the majority of the companies around Hamburg will be default, getting a default. It's actually quite good, because that means that you can buy it for you very cheap if you have a different way on how to operate it. Shortage in care professionals in 2022, around 100,000 people we need. Those people in the Netherlands to provide care at home care. We see a huge increase in freelancers, because starting for yourself in home care as a one-man show is more profitable than working for a company. So where I'm currently at is that skill and innovation is truly needed in this industry to boost those profit margins. And also I interviewed, I cold called around 50 of those companies, 30 owners I spoke with, and the majority of the owners state that they cannot increase or they cannot continue to grow, because either they don't have money or staff to do that, or not the funding for the innovation to implement it. So there's a huge possibility in the upside currently. So that's Netherlands in a nutshell.
Let me just interject something. When he was talking about foundations and how the difficulty of getting money out of foundations, does anyone know who the first billionaire on the planet was? Jesus. Now you guys are Mr. and Mrs. Google fuck. And I'm going to come out with a fact that you don't know. Come on. J. Paul Getty. And why? Because all his money was in a foundation. He never paid a nickel in tax his entire life. And when you don't pay taxes, money accumulates a lot quicker. And when he invented the big oil transport, the super big ones, because they in those days oil was $1, $2, $3 a barrel. It took forever to get any oil out to make any real money. Of course, the cost of pulling the oil out of Saudi Arabia was like 10 cents or 20 cents a barrel. And there was a huge profit, but when they were only being able to ship 100,000 barrels, so he invented the super tanker where there was like 10 million barrels in, but when he died, and he's the guy that wouldn't pay money when they kidnapped his grandson, and they sent his grandson's ear back to him. And he says, I've got 12 grandchildren, you're going to have to send me a lot of body parts because I'm not paying for anybody. And that's how they think. Now, you guys probably think, oh, fuck, I would have given mine for my grandson, so, none of these guys would. Somebody asked me about the difference between them, remember, and would I be like that? That's why I'm not, a trillionaire, because I would pay money for my grandson's ear. Before they cut it off. I'm soft. I'm a fucking wuss. So if I'm a wuss, kids, what the fuck are you? But I just wanted to make that point. J. Paul Getty, and of course the J. Paul Getty Museum, which almost burned down here in the last big fire in Southern California. Just think about it. If you never had to pay taxes, how much quicker money would accumulate? Okay, excuse me for interruption. Go ahead.
I was second guessing this industry.
Okay.